Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's breakdown and analysis of Game of Thrones Season 7 trailer. In this video, I give my thoughts on the newest Game of Thrones trailer and what it may mean for the upcoming season. So I have to give a spoiler warning for Game of Thrones up to the end of Season 6, and more importantly, a spoiler warning for production leaks and very detailed plot leaks for Season 7. If you don't want to know any spoilers for Season 7, then you may not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things may be spoiled for you. However, you could check out my trailer reaction and thoughts video, which does not contain any spoilers from Season 7. I'll leave a link in the description below for that video. So, my overall thoughts on the trailer. First of all, I do think this is the best trailer for Game of Thrones yet. Now, I know that may sound like hyperbole and something people say about every trailer, but this one really impressed me. I absolutely love the music and the pacing of it. This was definitely the most tense trailer they put out yet, as the music and feel to it was something akin to like a horror movie or big action movie trailer. And overall, the shots in the trailer are much more cinematic than previous seasons. Now, Game of Thrones has always been cinematic, particularly last year with episodes like Battle of the Bastards and the sequence with Cersei blowing up Baelor's Sept, but this year it seems to be pushing the envelope even more. So I think we're starting to see the benefit of having shorter seasons, which a lot of people complained about, but shorter seasons means they have more time to spend on upping the production value. Like this shot here of Daenerys arriving in Dragonstone is simply beautiful. Now, we've seen Dragonstone before through Stannis' storyline, but we never got shots like this in Daenerys' throne room, so it seems we're getting a whole different side of Dragonstone. But anyway, I think the intenseness of the trailer is an indication of what the coming season will be like, as I feel it would be the most intense season yet, has many conflicts that the show has been setting up for years, such as Daenerys coming to Westeros and the incoming White Walker threat will finally come to pass, or at least start to come to pass this season, and that's reflected in the trailer. The showrunners recently said that the pace is going to be a lot faster this season than it has been before, but they stated it made sense for the story to do it, and they don't think they rushed it. But yeah, I tend to take their word for it, but we'll see. So let's take a more detailed look. So I'm not necessarily going to go shot by shot, as I find it easier to group the storylines together and talk about them all at once. So the trailer begins with Cersei, so let's start here. We get her voiceover of her talking about enemies to the east, enemies to the west, south, and north, and for some reason, every time I watch this part, I think about that song that goes, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, here I am stuck. Anyway, this is a cool way to start the trailer, although I'm not really sure I agree with the choices of images they chose for North and South. For the East, they chose Grey Worm standing with a bunch of Unsullied, which I think makes a lot of sense, as the Unsullied were seen mostly a standard of Essos as an Eastern thing, and having them in Westeros is quite unique and quite new. And enemies to the West, we see an Ironborn ship. Some speculate that it's Yar and Theon's ship. I was thinking it was Euron, but as we know, Cersei will make an alliance with Euron, but the scene could be before that. Anyway, when she says enemies to the south, they just showed someone sharpening their sword, and we have no idea who this is. I heard a lot of wild speculation from Randall Tarley to the Sand Snakes to Gendry to Brienne, but really we have no clue who this is, and I think they could have shown a much better image to portray a threat from the south, but whatever. And when she says enemies to the north, we see a shot of Arya, which surprised me because I thought they showed Jon Snow. Now, we do know Cersei is on Arya's kill list, and in fact, had I seen this trailer before I read the spoilers, I would have said this is an indication Arya is on her way to kill Cersei, but of course, with the spoilers, we know that that is not the case. So I think the trailer is actually really misleading people in this regard, getting you to think Arya is on her way to kill Cersei, which she isn't. I suppose they just wanted more Arya in the trailer. So she also tells Jaime that they're the last Lannisters, the last ones that count, and we see them standing together in the throne room, so it does look like they're united. And at the end of season 6, when we saw Jaime give Cersei a disapproving look while she was being crowned queen, a lot of people assumed that Jaime and Cersei would be immediately at odds with each other, but I don't really think that's the case. I think this is just the beginning of Jaime starting to disapprove of her, but for the most part, I think he will stand by her, and I think that this intro is a strong indication of that. And it's basically, it's the twin Lannisters versus the world. Another thing I really like how this is done in the trailer, how it shows the Lannister soldiers marching, and it keeps the cadence of that marching sound through the next couple of shots, which I think really works well to showcase that the Lannisters still have a sizable force, that despite the fact that they're surrounded by enemies on all sides, they aren't pushovers and are still a force to be reckoned with. Now that's all we really get of Cersei and Jaime in the trailer, other than a brief shot of the Mountain and his new armor. Now, I've seen a lot of strong opinions on this new armor. Some people who love it, some people who hate it, some mocking it, saying it looks like a medieval version of Darth Vader. But for myself, I don't have strong feelings about it either way. I don't hate it, I don't love it. It's fine. I don't really have an opinion on it. If they want to give the Mountain a new look, whatever, go for it. What do I care? Anyway, the trailer then transitions to Daenerys, but they do it through Tyrion by having Cersei's voiceover about the last Lannisters that count, and then showing Tyrion the implications clearly that Tyrion no longer counts. And I do have to mention once again that I hope we see Cersei's reaction when she finds out Tyrion is Daenerys' hand. The one who started the war against her and is trying to steal the Iron Throne from her. I'd love to see that. So anyway, this is the only shot we get of Tyrion in the trailer, and he's standing by a cliffside, has dragons fly over. So once again, portraying the awe he feels whenever he sees dragons. And I hope we do get more of Tyrion's relationship with the dragons this season, but there's no indication in this trailer, so we'll just have to see. So we do get to see Daenerys arrive at Dragonstone and a voiceover about her birthright to rule the Seven Kingdoms. Nothing surprising, we heard this all before from her, but I think it's important to hear it from her once more, as it will be vital a part of the season, and it's coupled by images of her putting her hand on Westeros soil for the first time and her sitting on her funky looking throne at Dragonstone. I love how they played the super tense music while they showed her sitting on the throne, and that transitions to shots of the Unsullied battling Lannister soldiers inside a castle. So this is really interesting and something worth talking about. A lot of people are assuming that this is Castle Rock, and while we don't know for sure, it does look like the most likely possibility. But really, it could be any Lannister stronghold, but I do think Castle Rock is the most likely possibility. When I first saw the trailer, I was thinking maybe it could be Highgarden after the Lannisters took it over and the Unsullied are taking it back, but we see Lannister symbols embroidered on the wall, so it's definitely not Highgarden. It's definitely a Lannister stronghold, most likely Castle Rock. So if that is the case, that's quite surprising, because how did the Unsullied get inside of Castle Rock? As it appears it's meant to be the most impenetrable fortress in Westeros that has never been breached before in the history of anything. So that's why when making my predictions, I'd assume that Grey Worm would put it under siege, and it would be this huge long standoff siege. But here it looks like he's inside. From the plot leaks, we do know Daenerys will send Grey Worm and the Unsullied to take Castle Rock, but I thought that meant a siege. However, an explanation of how they may have gotten inside could be because Tyrion helped them. Remember, Tyrion grew up in Castle Rock and lived there most of his life. In fact, he mentioned earlier in the show how he was put in charge of the sewage system, in which he did an exceptionally good job. So maybe he knows a way to sneak people in through the sewage system, or some other ways to sneak a few people in. And just like Grey Worm, Daario, and Jorah did at Yunkai, where the three of them snuck in and they opened the gates to let everyone else in, the rest of their army, perhaps that's exactly what they do here at Castle Rock. Now, Grey Worm is the only character we see here, the only main character. In my predictions, I said that Jaime would be at Castle Rock when the Unsullied arrived, but we don't see him here, but that doesn't mean he isn't there. Maybe the trailer just simply didn't show him, but I could see a scenario where we just get a few quick scenes of Grey Worm leading the Unsullied to take over Castle Rock without any other main characters there, but we'll just have to see. So later in the trailer, we get a shot of a lion sort of figurine being knocked over. That's on top of that tabletop map of Westeros we know is at Dragonstone. And later we see Daenerys and Tyrion standing by that table. So some may have speculated that that is Tyrion knocking over the lion to show that Castle Rock has fallen. Who knows? Could be. I also think it's possible that it could just be Tyrion knocking it over to show like plans to defeat the Lannisters. It's like, here are plans. We're gonna do this and knock over the lion. But either way, I think it looks awesome. But speaking of Grey Worm, the other shot of him in the trailer is we see him undressing in front of Missandei, and it looks like they're about to get it on, which of course has brought up a lot of speculation about the fact that he's a eunuch. Now, I have heard one video mistakenly reporting that he is definitely still has the pillar, but not the stones, but that was never confirmed. We saw a scene in season 4 where Dany specifically asked Missandei about that, and she didn't know, which I actually find hard to believe because she knows a lot about the Unsullied because she worked for Master Krasinski for a long time, who sold Unsullied, so it seems like something she should know. In fact, in the novels, Missandei interprets for Daenerys Master Krasinski telling her that the Unsullied have neither the pillar nor the stones, which, by the way, is probably where the show got those terms from in the first place. So I'd be leaning towards there being nothing there. That has been established to be the case with Varys, as we saw in season 2. Roz was reaching down there and she found nothing there. Of course, this doesn't mean it's the same way with the Unsullied. It could be totally different. So Grey Worm and Missandei could still be intimate in other ways, though. Perhaps with, just him pleasuring her, or perhaps they just lied together like we saw the Unsullied doing with prostitutes at the start of season 5. Either way, not that big of a deal, and I think I spent way too much time talking about this already. So, moving on. On the topic of Daenerys, we also see a couple of cool shots of Dothraki fighting, including this shot of them jumping on their horses, which just goes to showcase the different fighting styles of the Dothraki, who have never been to Westeros before, so will certainly change things up and make things totally unexpected. In another shot, we see the Dothraki fighting with 2 blades. Now, I didn't notice this to myself, but another video I watched pointed out that the soldiers they were fighting were in fact Tarly men, which of course comes as no shock to those who have read the plot leaks, as it has been confirmed that the Tarlys will betray the Tyrells to the Lannisters, and that these fighting shots of Dothraki were likely taken from this big battle that takes place when the Tarly and Lannister forces are returning to King's Landing from Highgarden with all the goods that they stole from Highgarden, and is where Daenerys will ambush them. Which, of course, is also where this epic shot that closes out the trailers from of Drogon flying overhead has over top of a charging Dothraki horde. Now, I heard someone else comment that this was the dumbest thing in the world for the Lannisters to do to meet the Dothraki on an open field, but those of us familiar with the plot leaks know that this battlefield wasn't of the Lannisters choosing. They were ambushed. So it was in fact a battlefield of Daenerys' choosing, which makes a lot of sense why she would choose an open field to ambush them, as the Dothraki are the most effective soldiers in the plains. So frankly, the Lannisters don't stand a chance. But more than that, the frickin' dragons are also the most effective in the plains, as this kind of mirrors the Field of Fire, where the Lannister forces teamed up with the forces of the Reach to take on Aegon Targaryen, who simply roasted them easily in an open field with his dragons. So the battle bears a lot of similarity to that, as it is Lannister forces teaming up with forces from the Reach. This time it's the Tarlys, thinking that they could take on a conquering Targaryen and their 3 dragons, and getting their asses roasted instead. The Lannisters are going to get the ever-loving shit kicked out of them, and I cannot wait to see it. As arrogant as Jaime and Cersei have been, I've been waiting for this moment to see their asses handed to them. I mean, it's not like, they haven't had their pitfalls already with Jaime losing his hand and the Walk of Shame for Cersei, but they still think that they can just steal the Iron Throne and get away with it, so I'm so eager to see them get their comeuppance. Anywho, moving on to Jon Snow, which is the next segment we get in the trailer, making it clear these are the three most important characters in the show: Cersei, Daenerys, and Jon, as the trailer opens with a segment from the three of them. This, of course, goes along with the Long Walk trailer, which focused on the three of them. So, the Jon Snow segment starts out with an audio cue of Lord Gover yelling, "King in the North!" which is definitely taken from the Season 6 finale. However, the visuals appear to be all new footage. I just think they took the audio from Season 6 because it was a great way to transition the segments. So, as a lot of people pointed out to me, you can see Brienne in the background of these shots, so we know she'll be up there hanging out in the north as we see the shot of all the Northern Lords meeting. If I had to guess, I'd say this is from scenes that we know are coming where they try to decide what to do with the Umbers and the Karstarks after they betrayed the Starks, where Sansa insists they be executed and their lands forfeited, but Jon will show mercy, but that is just my guess. But what's interesting in this segment is it isn't Jon's voiceover we focus on, but Littlefinger's, as Littlefinger apparently is talking to Sansa, telling her she's the best hope against the coming storm. And then we get this, which is probably my favorite shot in the whole trailer, and I think the best shot of Littlefinger ever, as it so perfectly portrays what his character is all about, lurking in the shadows and affecting things behind the scenes. So I do think they're setting up Littlefinger as the main villain of the Northern storyline, which is why I feel he needs to die by the end of the season, as he is the main thing that the Starks in the North need to overcome. However, Jon's not going to be the one to kill him, as we also get a shot of Jon pinning Littlefinger up against the wall in the crypts of Winterfell, and a lot of people have pointed out the similarities between Ned grabbing Littlefinger by the throat in Season 1, and I think that's a good call, and they were purposely trying to evoke that image. However, on the other hand, I believe a lot of people are reading a bit too much into the scene and letting their imaginations run a bit wild. First, with the theories that Jon will kill Littlefinger. As we know from the plot leaks, it will in fact be Arya who kills Littlefinger, not Jon. Jon actually won't be in Winterfell for most of the season. This is actually something the trailer does a great job of hiding, and particularly hiding the fact that Daenerys and Jon will meet and be together for a lot of the season. And of course, the other way I think people are letting their imaginations run wild is saying that this scene, this little clip from the trailer, indicates that Littlefinger will tell Jon his true parentage, and I very strongly predict that will not happen. For one thing, I don't think Littlefinger knows. A lot of people are reading, in my opinion, are reading a bit too much into that scene from Season 5 where Littlefinger questioned the official story that Rhaegar raped and kidnapped Lyanna. But I think it's a long journey from questioning the official story to knowing who Jon's parents are. I think in this scene, they're in the crypts for Rickon, because Jon stated in last season that he was going to have Rickon buried in the crypt. So I think Jon is there paying his respects when Littlefinger comes up and starts being a creepy dick and says something to piss Jon off, so he slams him against the wall, and that's it. I don't really see this as a pivotal scene or something where we'll get a lot of great information. I see it more likely to be another sort of side supporting scene that just further shows that Littlefinger is working against Jon and Jon knows it. That's all, but we'll see. So speaking of Jon, the other shots we get of him is on his mission north to get a white. I did find it interesting that this trailer didn't feature any White Walker shots, where the Season 6 trailer had quite a few, as well as the Long Walk trailer focused on the Night King. Whereas here, we didn't get any, but we do see a few shots of people up in the north in the snow, and I do think this is the Fellowship, as I call them. We know that Jon, Tormund, Jorah, Gendry, the Hound, Beric, and Thoros are going up north on a mission to get a white, and I think the few shots we get of these people up north is of that. There's even been speculation that this shot of the gate of the wall opening is at Eastwatch because it doesn't look like the one at Castle Black. I don't notice any difference. Looks like just like the Castle Black one to me, but on the other hand, the last thing I want to do is to start a petty argument about this. So yeah, sure, it's Eastwatch by the sea. Let's move on and not make any comments about this, okay? Cheers. Anywho, we also get this quick shot of Jon running on what looks like a ramp over water. I heard one person refer to it as a cave, but it looks more like a boat ramp to me, but who cares? Whatever it is, I'm sure it has to do with the Fellowship's mission north, and they seem to be moving rather fast, so I'd say it looks like they're running from something. And speaking of Jon running from something, we also see this shot, which is clearly Jon Snow and Tormund running in what appears to be north of the wall. So I'd say this is also from the Fellowship's mission north, and they're getting their asses kicked and running away from some White Walkers or from some Whites. But that's just how I see it. So, speaking of the Starks and speaking of things we don't see in the trailer, we get no Bran in this trailer. That may be because his storyline is too spoilery, or maybe they just want his storyline to be mysterious. In fact, what I could say about Bran also applies to another Stark we did see in the trailer, and that's Arya, and that it's obvious they don't want to reveal that Bran and Arya are heading to Winterfell, which is funny since they've released a promo photo that showed Jon, Bran, and Arya and Sansa posing together, but I suppose, they could pass that off as a photo shoot and not necessarily indicative of what will happen in the show, because the few shots we got in the trailer of Arya gave little indication of where she was going. Mostly just showed her traveling alone. The closest indicator we got is seeing her in some place cold where we can see her breath as she breathes, and we got this one shot of her looking under a bed, and if I had to guess, I'd say that's her at Winterfell, but really, you can't tell that just by looking at the trailer. But the fact we see her traveling alone could mean she doesn't meet up with the Brotherhood or Brienne, as I suggested. In fact, I think the fact that we see Brienne at Winterfell with Jon indicates that she will already be there when the season starts. I'm still sticking by my theory that Arya will be headed to King's Landing to kill Cersei, but then something will divert her north. But I think now that maybe it's just seeing Nymeria that does it, and she doesn't run into anyone like the Hound. So let me just touch on a few other characters we see in the trailer. We get the shot of Melisandre at Dragonstone. There were some photos that indicated that she might be going there, but some thought that it might be another Red Priestess like Kinvara, but now we know it's definitely Melisandre, and she seems to already be there waiting when Jon and Davos arrive. Some had suggested she's even there before Daenerys arrives. I'm not so sure about that, but hey, anything's possible. Either way, it's interesting because it kind of suggests that she now sees Daenerys as Azor Ahai, or the one who was promised, or whatever, but it could be she still sees Jon as the one who was promised, and she's there to convince Daenerys of it. It is interesting to see how Jon will react to seeing her again, because he promised to kill her if she came north again, but she didn't come north. He went south, so she gets off on a technicality. Obviously, Davos is going to be pissed, but I think Jon will mostly let it slide and still talk to her. Speaking of Davos, like the Season 6 trailer, we see him warning someone about the White Walker threat. It's funny that Davos has become the biggest advocate against the White Walkers and for fighting for them, as he never actually got attacked by them or saw them personally, but I guess he was with Stannis, who was the only king to take the White Walker threat seriously, and now he's with Jon Snow, who's the biggest advocate against the White Walkers. I do really like what he says in this trailer, though, that if we don't band together, we're all dead, and it doesn't matter whose skeleton sits on the Iron Throne. That is an awesome line, and I strongly feel that he's saying this to Daenerys or one of her advisors, either when he first meets them or towards the end where they propose that she makes peace with Cersei to focus on the White Walkers. Either way, I think it is Daenerys' party that he is addressing. We also get a shot of a ship battle where it's, the ship is in flames. This pretty obviously is the famed Euron attacking Dornish and Yara's fleet, in which he will deal quite a blow. We also get a shot of Theon standing in flames, so I think this is from the very same battle. We know Theon gets out alive, where Yara and the Sand Snakes are either killed or captured, so I surmise that Theon is on another ship that Euron purposely lets escape because he wants others to know about what he did here, but I could be wrong. We also get a shot of two people falling in the water, and honestly, when I first saw this, I assumed that this was Jon and Tormund falling in the frozen lake during the White Walker attack, and the flame we see go above the water is from the dragons. But everyone and their mother was assuming this is from the Ironborn ship battle, and I do have to say that is a much more likely possibility, but it's funny there because that thought didn't even occur to me until someone else mentioned it. I watched that clip on repeat like 100 times, but I still couldn't tell who the hell it was. I think probably it's just two extras during the Ironborn battle, but we'll see. And speaking of the Ironborn, we also get a shot of Yara making out with Ellaria, which a lot of people seemed annoyed by, but frankly, I have no problem with this. And you may think after, how much I loathed what they did to Dorne in Season 6, I'd hate seeing Ellaria again, but I'm actually okay with seeing them again because I know they're going to die soon. And frankly, I think a bit of, hanky-panky between these two is it makes sense and it's perfectly fine. I know some like to complain that this is HBO trying to be all sexy and objectifying women or whatever, but I disagree. I mean, Yara and Ellaria are not bad looking at all, but they're not what I would classify as the stereotypical Hollywood sex object, so I would deem it more in a positive light as they're showing more strong portrayals of the LGBT community in television, which is what we need, so it's fine by me. So we also get a shot of Jorah's hand sticking out the door. As at first I wasn't sure who this was. I thought maybe it was a white or something, but upon further inspection it's definitely Jorah's grayscale written hand because you can see that yellow shirt that he always wears. And part of the reason I didn't think it was him is because we know that he gets cured at Old Town, but this shot is obviously before he gets cured and it's likely in Old Town, but it's impossible to tell from this one shot. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the trailer. Overall, it looks awesome, has me super pumped for Season 7. Now, there's been some speculation on whether or not we will get another trailer before the season starts, as this one came quite late. Some thinking that we won't get another one. I think that we probably will, but I wouldn't be too surprised nor disappointed if we didn't. After all, I already know too much about what's going to happen in the season, so the less I know, the better. But on the other hand, I wouldn't mind another trailer, but we'll just have to see. So that's it for my Game of Thrones Season 7 trailer breakdown and analysis. Be sure to check out my channel for many more Game of Thrones videos and more to come, as well as many other videos on other shows like Star Trek The Leftovers, Better Call Saul, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all that. And thanks a lot for watching.